Hi everyone. Today I would like to talk to you about, kind of provide you a short introduction on James Joyce. He's the author and Irish author of few interesting books. Some of them are considered one of the most difficult books to read. But James Joyce, who grew up in Dublin, um, 1930s. A lot of his books pertain to this conflict of Catholicism, the Irish versus the English. He wrote this very interesting book called Young Man, Portrait of a Young Man as an Artist, which is kind of there is an introduction into it. There is a little biographic touch to it, but there's one. My favorite quote from that book is, "The history is a nightmare from which I'm trying to wake up." Um, I'm paraphrasing that, of course. It's just a fascinating read of a young man trying to define what identity means, how it all goes. But James Joyce, one book that is very well known, it's called Ulysses. Um, a fascinating read. The whole story takes about 24 hours. Um, Discusses everything and anything. The word "yes" has so many different meanings in that text, which is fascinating. James Joyce, when Ulysses was published, and especially when it was published here in the United States, it was banned because it was considered to be too explicit, meaning it had sexual content. But he won, and the book was published, which is a fascinating read. If you want to read that book, I suggest you start maybe reread the Bible, reread Ulysses, the Odyssey by Homer, because that follows the story is kind of based on that too. You should read also Shakespeare. Maybe you should touch up on a little bit on Irish history during 19th century, 20th century. I would say the end of 19th, the 20th century, where in the context where the history takes place. I think it's a great book to read. Um, it's basically a book that these characters are walking through the Dublin and they're discussing so many different topics, from philosophy to religion to God to this to that. I mean, it just goes all over the place. But it's an amazing. It could be a very difficult book to read because it references so many historical and biblical and philosophical and Shakespearean ideas. So, James Joyce, I will talk about Ulysses a lot more, but for now, I would just like to say, if you want to start with James Joyce, it would be a good idea to start with Portrait of a Man as a Young Artist. That provides it's kind of an introduction to this larger book, um, Ulysses. All right, well, that's all right now on James Joyce. I will discuss it a lot more further, but that's all for right now. Thank you.